Hello. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jurgen and Giuseppe. Thank you for joining me this morning or popping in to say hello. It's always nice to hear from you. My name is Jeff. This is our weekly live event. I think it's streaming. Yeah, it should be streaming. This is the time we set aside each week to talk about things voice-related and stuff like that. Hello, Mrs. Webster. Hopefully you can see me and hear me. I'm wondering if I'm on the wrong page here. Hello? Can you see me out there? Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Akil. It does... Okay, good. Thank you, Jurgen. YouTube, they change things from time to time. And sometimes it's really, really weird. Very cool. Thank you, Heidi. I'm looking at like my analytics, but it says that nothing is happening. But clearly it's happening, so we're cool. Hello, Dylan Klein Music. Thank you, Jurgen. I did not know what that first part meant. Hello, Mandy. Yes, excellent. Excellent. Hello again. Good. So yes, this is the time set aside each week to talk about the voice, to talk about stuff, basically. It's your live event, so you can ask questions and I will do my best to address them and we'll kind of go on from there. Hello, Ronaldo. And at Mandy Webster, hello, Mrs. Anna Marie, hello. I don't know if I recall your user ID showing up here in our live event before. Welcome if this is your first time. Bob Omar, please, you must make a video about whistle register. Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But thank you for reminding me. I like to address these things as soon as I can, but I just won't do it until I feel like I have a better understanding of what I can do to help. I don't want to perpetuate I really try hard to avoid even questionable information or things that I don't, understand as well as I possibly can. But the fact of the matter is this last week was absolutely rammed with different stuff to do, and I didn't really even think about, I must admit, doing a bit more research on all of that. But I will, and thank you for reminding me. At Mrs. Webster, Striker King, there's a lot of boom about placing the voice, and it seems a new move towards not doing voice placement. Can you comment on the options for placement that isn't placement? Yeah, very, very cool question, Striker. Very cool question. I'm not sure why this is starting to come to more of the forefront, but actually I just did, was it last week? No, last week I think was I'm confused. I'm so sorry. I'm getting a little confused just because it's been incredibly busy. But it was either last week or the week before I did a video on vowel placement or vowel alignment. And the fact of the matter is that the schools of voice don't agree conceptually on how vowels are to be placed. So one school might say, oh, this vowel needs to go forward and this one needs to go back. And the other school might say exactly the opposite. And the thing is that a lot of the directions that even myself may occasionally give when working with someone on vowel placement is meant to try to get that individual to do a specific thing or feel how their voice can function in a more optimal way. But those same directions may not be true for someone else. And all of this is entirely subjective. So, sorry guys, 1 second here. We got someone who's not being particularly kind. Um, so it's entirely subjective. How you may perceive something may be different from how someone else may perceive something. And so what we're starting to come to now is more the truth of the matter behind vowel placement, which is that it's all rather subjective, and if you want to understand how to place things, it's better to understand how the structures work in an optimized scenario. So you start talking about like bucopharyngeal engagement and all these different things. Now, a lot of this stuff you can't even consciously control. So you work towards proper expansion and engagement and trying to listen to the sounds of your vowels so that they sound balanced for starters, and then getting all of those vowels in alignment so that they sound and have a similar tone, that they balance out. Furthermore, as if to add even more confusion about this, when we talk about placement of vowels, we're often talking about them in relationship to the speaking voice. And when we're singing, they must be reconciled amongst one another. So oo in the speaking voice sits way far back, whereas e sits way far forward. So the directions that one might give in a singing lesson to say like, oh, you need to bring your oo vowel more forward like an e vowel. We're not talking about the singing voice here. We're trying to use the perception of the speaking voice to influence phonation in the singing voice. So that's an awesome question, and I could go on and on and on about it, but at least that's part of it. And in the video on vowel alignment that, again, was just released like a week or two ago, I talk a lot about how vowels influence behavior, how we can work towards getting them in alignment, and a little, I kind of briefly touch on what we've just spoken about here about the whole notion of not placement. But the fact of the matter is that, if you like, I study Richard Miller's works. So when you go through his works, you find that he basically discredits the notion of vowel placement almost immediately, that it's a flawed concept, that we shouldn't really be trying to place it. And in fact, if you're trying to place it, you are engaging muscular action in the oral cavity, which is going to almost certainly dampen down sympathetic vibrations and cause you to lose color and tone and all the good things that happen. So don't take my word for it. You can find this in the text. It's not even a new concept, because Richard Miller's been dead for a little while anyways. I mean, I don't know if it's like 10 or 15 years or something like that. Mrs. Webster at Stryker, what do you think about Ian Gillian? Sure, I'd have to listen to that person. I don't know who they sing for. Hi, Stryker, I have Whoopa. Yeah, Stryker really batted that one out of the park. That was a cool question. And I have to admit, like that, in studying Richard Miller's works, I've been aware of this idea that talking about vowel placement is kind of missing the point. And you'll notice that there might be one other video out of my 600 videos on this channel. There might be one video that says vowel placement or something to that in the title. And even in that video, I don't really use the words to place things. I'm talking about it more in terms of vowels working to help align. We want to align the cardinal vowels by comparing and contrasting the differences between the 5 vowels, working towards a neutral phonation for all 5. That's my theory behind how this all works. That's what I work towards in my teaching. Mandy Cummins, why is such an emphasis on being able to sing high? I mean, it seems that only voices that can go super high are viewed as good voices. It's not fair to singers who work hard in lower registers. Agreed. I don't know why that is. As a singing instructor, I spend probably 99.99% of my time helping people learn to sing higher. That being said, if you cannot at least make a transition over the secondo passaggio, then you end up with an incredibly, like a severely limited range within which to work. So there's a certain objective argument to be made for expanding one's range beyond the secondo passaggio, but if you have like a lower alto range voice, you might have as much as an octave in a perfect fourth, give or take, maybe a little bit more before you start to have to make a transition over the secondo passaggio. And with that kind of range, most pop tunes are within your overall usable range. But there's always going to be some that go beyond that. If you're a tenor range vocalist, you really don't have much choice in the matter if you want to sing just about anything at all, because the usable range will only extend so far down, beyond which it gets really untenable. But then you're stuck with the secondo passaggio on the top side of your range. So some tenor fox really, in performance, it wouldn't be great for them to sing below a C3. You know, speaking for myself, I don't really like to sing beyond that point in performance. But with a secondo passaggio, or a zona di passaggio that starts an octave above that, if you can't at least start to make the modifications through the zona di passaggio, you're really in trouble. You really have a very, very small range to work within. Oh, well, I should have read ahead there, Mandy, but there you go. Dylan Klein, totally agree. Thank you, Mandy and Stryker. Thank you so much. Mrs. Webster, I too have noticed that. Why are sopranos so competitive? Yeah, it's sort of this like arms race, isn't it? You know, it's like everyone's... why is music competitive at all? That's a very interesting question. Do basses try to outdo each other? I don't know. I mean, you know, speaking for myself, in the environment that I came up in, it was an incredibly highly competitive environment, which ultimately led to me burning out. I never like stopped doing music entirely, obviously, but I definitely made a significant change in what I was going to do with music and what I wanted to do. I mean, I don't, you know, why is it competitive? Because the first chair players get the better parts, the cooler solos. I mean, it's fun to play the solo. You know, it's fun to have, you know, a solo line with, speaking as for those of you who don't know, I'm also a saxophone player. It's fun to be in a wind ensemble and to be the first chair player and to have 80 other musicians, you know, playing the other moving lines within the part that you are the soloist in. It's fun to play Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition and to play with an orchestra. It's fun to do those things. It's exciting. And you don't get to do those if you're not first chair. So you have to get to first chair, and that means you have to be competitive if you want to do that. I mean, there's probably always going to be some like some sort of civic wind ensemble or things like that, which is, you know, gonna play the pieces, but there's gonna be all kinds of problems. If you want to play those parts with any reputable ensembles, there's always gonna be exceptions, but in general, with a reputable ensemble, then you got to do the work to get to that first chair. Exactly. I mean, I wanted to increase my usage of upper registers because it was fun, because I have a voice, I think you meant, not vice, that lent itself to that, not because I thought that was bad before. Agreed. You know, I of course, like, once I discovered what was happening in the transition over the secondo passaggio, I thought it was fascinating. Like, just the change in the structures and how things moved as we made our way over the secondo passaggio. It's just an amazing thing to do. That alone, I think, is worth learning how to do. Not Natalia. Hello, Jeff. Coming back with the same question from last week. On Ribcage opening, you were saying you struggled with it for some time and that it caused some tensions. That's exactly what I feel. The song sounds much worse when I try to keep the ribs open. How do you overcome it? And if you can, explain why exactly is it beneficial to keep the ribcage open? Okay, so bottom line first. Keeping the ribcage open allows for the rectus abdominis muscles, inner and outer oblique muscles, to interact more directly with the diaphragm. The diaphragm is an involuntary muscle. It is, in fact, passive when we are singing. I know. That is a totally contradictory statement to 99% of what you will hear and see online. Please do not take my word for it. I would direct you to Shirley Emmons' very, very easily digestible webpage on Apagio breath management, or you can read the works of Richard Miller, who goes into it in great detail. And if you go to my Amazon influencer page, which I think is now in the description of this live event, there are several books of his. There are a couple that are available in digital format, which are incredibly cheap, like 10 or 13 bucks. They are extremely worth having, even if it's not exactly for your vocal range, if you will. Because you can read about what he's talking about and how he's teaching it. It was his works and his writings that, and this is like 15 some odd years ago, that really changed the direction of my singing and teaching. So now, moving back up through your questions here, maintaining lateral engagement and expansion of the ribcage is necessary in order to have those muscles work towards keeping the voice in a suspended or suspending the air column. That's how Apagio breathing is talked about. It's talked about suspending the air column. My struggle with it came because I was basically I was just using too much musculature to try to suspend the system. I was really holding the ribs taut. I was really using my abdominal muscles very aggressively to try to assist in that. What ended up happening was that I was not as dynamic as I really needed to be in order to get a good, efficient use of the system. You can move around a little bit to feel when things are tense. And what will probably happen in the initial stages of that is that the ribcage will collapse, and so you'll have to re-expand it. But in so doing, you will eventually be able to be more dynamic so that the ribcage is held open, but it's not too tense. And you'll be able to maintain that openness as the rectus abdominis muscles and other torso muscles lift in order to assist you in keeping that open. So the ribcage is going to stay expanded and laterally expanded, and the muscles, the torso muscles, rectus abdominis, inner and outer oblique, intercostal muscles will lift as the lungs are expelling air. So what I was doing was I was thinking about it too much like these examples. I was thinking about it too much like I'm going to squeeze this bag of air and it's going to squirt out the top. But a better way of thinking about this is that the top that's holding the air in and the squeezing on the bag you want to work it so that they're basically, this is only pushing down enough to just barely keep the air in, and this is only pushing up enough to just kind of keep the air moving out. It's very persistent, but they work together. The vocal fold engagement and the subglottic air pressure, torso engagement, airflow if you prefer, they're intertwined in their coordination and in how they help us to get efficient use of the voice. And when you find that they're working together, you won't strain as much, and you'll only lift with the torso muscles as much as is necessary at the appropriate range and the appropriate point of depletion. So when you've used up a bunch of air, then those muscles will be lifting a lot more. I would again say keep 20% in reserve. So when you start to feel like you've only got about 20% of your air left, take a breath. Mrs. Webster, it makes me sad that music is inherently a collaboration of people, and the catty attitudes just wreck the experience as well as the music. Yeah, politics has ruined much music. It's true. I mean that like in the sort of the politics of people and administrations and organizations and things like that. It's a drag. Heidi, I quit smoking. Congratulations, Heidi. Really pushing hard to get the vocals in shape, having difficulty with breathing, doing exercise, losing your breath. Probably gonna take a little time. Probably gonna take a little time to, get your lungs all feeling good and stuff like that. Just remember 80-20, 80-20. No more than 80% full, no less than 20% in reserve. Stay in that zone. But if you're really having difficulty breathing, you may really want to consider seeing your doctor too, just making sure that you're recovering okay from having smoked. I don't know how long you smoked for, but congratulations again. But the fact is that singers who have higher voices get hired more often. Congratulations to you too, Mandy. That's really good. Yeah, I would amend that, Mandy, to the vocalists who can sing higher. You don't have to have a higher voice to necessarily get the gig. You just have to be able to get over the secondo passaggio effectively. Think about it this way. Regardless of what actual fuck Miley Cyrus has, if you're an alto and you can sing over your secondo passaggio, you can pretty much sing all her songs because they don't go that high. Whoa! Engagement breath is more important than lung capacity. Exactly right. And I'd love to chat and find out how your journey has been vocally in improvement. Heidi, if you're not already on Sequencer, that's where you could do that. Sequencer, a global voice, where you can chat amongst, basically we can keep the chat going, is what that's for. Wrong handle. Anna Marie, why does singing with vowels warm up the voice? It's not necessarily that singing with vowels warms up the voice. It's just that singing with vowels is perhaps one of the more efficient, and it's one of the more efficient ways to warm up. And also the warm-ups on my channel are actually technical exercises. They all have a point. They're all meant to work on continuity of alignment, continuity of engagement and alignment of the vowels so that your voice gets better and better and better. So warm-ups aren't just warm-ups, they're actually technical exercises too. And the vowels are the most unobstructed way to work on our voices. Without the consonants to break up the air column, the vowels, they alternately help us to become successful in how we're phonating, and they also reveal any inconsistencies quite directly. David Walsh, perhaps high voices are in demand because they seem to do what most of us cannot. There's drama and excitement in ringing high notes. And true. All right, Mandy, cool. Mrs. Webster at David Walsh. Of Deep Purple, Child in Time. Never heard of? I've heard of Deep Purple. Of course, I did not realize that Ian Gillan was the name of the vocalist for that. In fact, all morning long, I've been singing "Smoke on the Water," which I believe was a Deep Purple tune, written from their view of the recording studio that the Rolling Stones had bumped them out of as it was burning down across the lake in Switzerland. I think that's how the story goes. David Walsh, question for anyone. Does anyone find it easier to sing along with darker voices, Domingo, for example, than more traditional tenor voices, regardless of range? That's a very interesting question, Mandy. Why do we think that high equals trauma? I do agree that pro singers should be able to manage the secondo passaggio, as do I. All right. See you, Striker. Sure, how do you come find me on Facebook through Sequencer? There you go. Very cool. Heidi Banker. Hi, everyone. Very cool. Understanding computers is cool. Anna Marie, I feel I'm holding myself back, feeling self-conscious when practicing, because I feel the enables are listening. Any tips? That's a tough one. Try and close up your doors and windows. Maybe try to be in an internal room so that it has no adjacent walls. That can help in terms of sound transmission. Maybe try and practice, if possible, when they're not around, or middle of the day, if that works for you. If it's really bad, then you might look into different rehearsal facilities in your nearby area. Oftentimes, you can get them really, really cheap per hour. Uh-oh. Excuse me, I hope that didn't, like, blow everyone's ears out. I think that's, like, the first time I've sneezed during a live event. Yeah, you might consider, like, a rehearsal facility somewhere. Oh, goodness me. Somewhere nearby that you could rehearse without having to worry about it. Hello, Altug. Oh, Altug, I was thinking about you last week, but you didn't. If you were there, you didn't say hello. I'm really glad that I said I wanted to wait on the voce aperta and voce chiusa, because of course, like, the chiusca remind me of chiuscaro tone, which is what we want. That's that nice ringing tone, good adduction and all that kind of stuff. But aperta, I thought of like open, which it is, but in the nomenclature, that's actually to be avoided. So I suspect did you know that already, or but yeah, so we want to avoid aperta and have chiaroscuro tone. If I'm probably butchering the pronunciation on that, I apologize. I do, Mandy. That's right. I am a saxophone player. Mrs. Webster. Very cool. Very, very cool. In fact, if you're on Amazon.com and you search for the Millennium Tribute to Adolph Sax Volume 3, you'll find a semi-known singing instructor who happens to be on that CD. I think it's still, I assume it's still on Amazon, I don't know. Hi, Alta, hey, Mandy, Mrs. Webster, David Walsh, Mandy, don't know, think of bass singing, Old Man River, or the baritone in Act 3 of Rigoletto. Great singing and drama, but ringing high notes are seen as special. Where the money is, this is true. Heidi Banker, I like singing alto, I don't like it if I have the feeling that I just got leftover notes. Yeah, the altos get the middle lines. You get to fill in all those harmonic spaces, which is incredibly important. But oftentimes it doesn't necessarily make for the most cohesive melodies. But the notes are still vastly important. Jake, 3048, what's the difference between belting in the mixed voice and true belt voice? Is belting just singing louder in your mixed voice, or is belting something else? Some coaches classify belt voice differently. Well, this is an unfortunate... Your question, Jake, is very good. Your question, however, sort of really addresses the fact that singing instruction doesn't always agree on these things. So, like, for example, belting in the mixed voice, that's in my studies and in the way that I study the voice, have studied the voice, and understand it, those things don't go together. You cannot belt in the mixed voice, and I suspect that when you use mixed voice, you're actually talking about cricothyroid dominant singing voice, which is above the secondo passaggio, commonly referred to as head voice. And that, too, is reflective of a variety of things that you can find today online. But the actual mixed voice is the space between the primo and secondo passaggios. That's what, in most studies that have research behind them, that's how we refer to that area of the voice, the zona di passaggio, or the mixed voice, where the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice or chest voice is giving way to the cricothyroid dominant singing voice or head voice. Belting is when you you increase breath energy and vocal fold engagement such that the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice retains dominance at the point where the cricothyroid dominant singing voice would have begun to elongate the vocal fold. It is also referred to as entering the call of the voice. Different people will tell you different things about, if it's harmful or not harmful, or it's okay, it's the blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. Recently there was a bunch of, musical theater is oftentimes cited as the place where belting is required, and yet recently there's been a number of musical theater. And I remember one person in particular who is a female vocalist whom everyone assumed she was belting, and I think that she maintained she was belting throughout her career, but then afterwards she's like, yeah, I was always crossing the secondo passaggio, I was always using my head voice. So, the things that you're saying are, commonly referred to, but they're not necessarily what it is. What belting is what I just mentioned. When you're using the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, and you are preventing the cricothyroid dominant singing voice from elongating the vocal fold and beginning the transition over registers. In English, and please don't take this the wrong way, but you're basically yelling. But kind of constructively, shall we say. But the action is sort of similar in that fashion. It's a lot of breath energy in order to do that. But I can think of at least one singing instructor online who talks about making a smooth transition over the secondo passaggio as being belting. The fact of the matter is that when you have a really, really good transition, my secondo passaggio, I am making a transition from my chest voice to my head voice right there when I sang those two exercises. But we learn to match timbres across the secondo passaggio so that it kind of sounds, hopefully it sounds like voce piena in testa, the sound of chest voice and head voice. And that, for me, has always been the goal, is to have that nice seamless transition. Do you agree? I'm not sure what HORS is supposed to be. Agree. Wind instruments enhance breathing for singing? No, I don't think so. Most of my breathing instruction for singing was, well, actually that's true too. Most of my instruction for breathing for both as a saxophone player and for my singing voice was rudimentary at best compared to what I studied years after I finished university. I find it unfortunate that breathing technique is, I don't know. It is what it is. I find that, well, one, I love playing the saxophone, so there's that. But I find that my sense of legato and phrasing is quite. I think about it. Maybe I don't know if I think about it differently. I find that playing the lines on the instruments. It's another way of looking at things, and it informs how I might want to phrase things as a vocalist. Ironically, I used to listen to vocalists all the time to influence my saxophone playing, to try to understand more about phrasing from that perspective. And it just goes back and forth. I think it all informs. It all goes back and forth, back and forth. The more instruments I think that we can experience and come to an understanding of, the more it helps us just overall as musicians. James, vocal cover. Have you ever taught someone or coached vocalists who scream? Yes, I have. I used to work with a lot of metal guys and girls, women, sorry. Lots of metal folks in San Francisco when I had my studio there. And goodness me, thank you. Thank you, Mandy. Sorry, folks, 1 second. And it's all, it's, it was always about like making sure that they stayed healthy. That was the main thing that we worked on. So we worked a lot on, as I do in general, like on engagement and airflow in order to make sure that they could keep on singing, that they weren't going to get fatigued all the time or wreck their voices. Nathan, just watching your warm-ups for the first time and now I love this channel. Wonderful. Do you have any tips for improving agility? Yes, if you want to be agile, then work on balance. Light and fast is the way it goes. So the more that you find that your singing voice is in balance, the more agile you will be. There are a few agility warm-ups on the channel, but you may need to have your vowels in alignment before they're really going to help. But welcome, and welcome to our live event, and please, keep on asking questions. Get up there and notice how my voice feels and what I can do. I recently learned Melisande is next to me, and I get that nice hollow dopey hoot, and I loved it. Brilliant. Thank you, Mandy. I appreciate that. The diaphragmatic warm-up is one of my personal favorites. Take care, Mandy. Africa, I play guitar. I would love to play cover songs while I sing, but when I listen to myself, it's terrible. Where do I start? Just start on vowel alignment. Just get started and work towards aligning your vowels. Jürgen, streamed elsewhere? No, I don't stream this anywhere else, but might need to think about that. Hello, JC's Radiant Ray. Welcome. And it seems like just in time. $80.20. Yeah, Mandy, I don't know. I think that I'm a little bit behind the times here. At David Walsh. Bless you, Jeff. Thank you. Hang in there, Mandy. Mrs. Webster, I do know my neighbors are listening, but evidently it's not an option. I do choose to practice during the day so that most are at work. Invited them to my next concert. That's always nice. At Mandy. Sing the crunchy parts of harmonies rather than always getting stuck in the melody, singing mezzo rather than soprano allows for that flexibility. Indeed. At Mandy, I'm going to try and stop being paranoid. Agreed, Anna Marie. Yeah. Or you might just knock on their door and say, hey, do you mind if I'm singing at such and such a time of day? Is it going to disturb you? Etc., so on and so forth. Best regards, Jürgen. At David Walsh. Wonderful, Anna Marie. Thank you. Shus at Jürgen. Hello, guys and gals. Hello, Karina. Hello, JC. Oh, you already said hello to JC's Radiant Ray. Bye, Mr. Craze. Whoa. I think at Janet 2A, do you learn harmony singing during your time in your singing group, Mrs. Webster? Mrs. Webster getting a raspy sound. I wonder if I'm clipping or something. Check, check, check. Karina, a little bit, but it's more about vowel alignment. In fact, Stryker asked a really, really good question earlier on about placement, which I addressed quite at length at the beginning of this event. If you don't mind, I would direct you to have a listen to that once it gets published to YouTube. But in short, conceptually, the notion of placement, of placing vowels is, and there'll be a lot of disagreement on this, but it's fundamentally flawed in that every person's subjective experience of singing any given vowel will be different from someone else's. My experience of singing it is different from yours. And furthermore, there's no objective standpoint to say an E vowel should feel like this. There's no consensus among singing instructors about that. So what that ends up meaning is that when you talk about placement, you're usually talking about the speaking voice. And you're trying to get the thoughts of the speaking voice to then influence the behavior of the singing voice. And so it's difficult basically to talk about placement without knowing a person's voice, because then you can say, like, you can try to instruct them to move things in a direction with the hopes that they'll move it in the right way, but again, it all being subjective, it could still all go wrong. Yeah, but I just did a video on vowel placement like a week or two ago. I would have a look at that. It's primarily talking about how some vowels can work with other vowels in order to get them to move in the right direction. A little raspier than usual. Might be a little goopy today. Let me, yeah, give me just a second, folks. I'll be right back. You'll be able to hear that. 1 second. Hold that thought. Okay. Yes, exactly. Thank you for holding. I didn't turn the lava lamp on early enough today, so you couldn't even like watch that burbling away. Is that better? I did a little gargle. I sang so much this week that my voice is probably a little bit static on the radio, so a little extra phlegm pops up when you sing, 5 or 6 hours a day for 4 or 5 days in a row. So, where was I here? Oh yeah, Karina, okay, so let me back up here. Do you have any advice for letting my chest voice get as high as my head voice? Yes, don't. Basically. The vocal structures don't really work that well like that, and you're quite likely to endure a lot of unnecessary fatigue and take a lot of time off from singing. My work on this and the videos on the channel are really clear about this. I would really highly recommend that you not exceed a major second above the secondo passaggio with your belted chest voice. And Karina, that's the thing, is that depending on how how you think about your voice, if you speak English as a native English speaker, or if it was a second, like all of those things impact how you feel and perceive the vowel sounds. It's ridiculous that for such a long time, singing instructors have doled out information on vowel placement arbitrarily. Even in knowing the student, it's entirely possible to give them direction that, because of their internal, very subjective sensations, could get an unwanted description. So I haven't really, if it says placement in the title, what you'll find is that there are exercises in that video that help you work on resonances. But and even if I say we're going to place it forward, the exercises will be about cultivating resonances rather than arbitrary instructions about placements, like you should direct it forward or direct it back or something like that. At Janet2A, Benny the Bear, that's a new user ID, welcome I think. Hey Jeff, I use your warm-ups for every practice. Awesome, thank you for watching. I always wonder if I should practice every day. Sometimes when I take a day or two off, I feel strong in the next practice. You gotta listen to your own instrument. Whatever your own instrument says, then honor that instrument. My feeling on the matter is that we want to practice just about every day. But it doesn't mean it has to be for hours and hours and hours. I vocalize to some degree basically every day. And at some point, you know, every once in a while I get a day or two off, and that's fine. But if I go beyond a day or two of not vocalizing, I really start to feel funny. It's unlikely that anyone would know the difference, but it still feels funny to me, and I don't like it. So there's that. It's quite likely that, you know, with continuing to practice and work with the videos and things like that, you will get more and more efficiency with your voice, and then the necessity of warming up will become much less necessary, shall we say. Shadrach, you said vowel, what? Or can you give, I think you mean link to the vowels. The vowels are in all the videos. Vowels carry sound. So like a T, 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 doesn't really carry pitch. Vowels can carry pitch, and they're what form the basis of our melodies and our singing voices. The raspy, oh good, okay, good. At Karina, James, vocal cover, I think it's a bit more tougher for metal vocalist and regular vocalist, as myself. But I just want to say that when I warm up, I always watch your videos on warming up. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you for watching. Very clear. Just a little. Oh, I already read that. Anna Marie, should you warm up quietly and gradually get louder? Just start with a balanced. Okay, so go for balanced phonation. So neither loud nor soft. However, being dynamic. So if you're ascending, then you'll get a little bit, perhaps a little bit louder as you ascend, and diminuendoing, or getting a little softer as you descend. And warm up to the range of the repertoire that you're singing. So if you are singing, nothing you're singing goes over the secondo passaggio, then don't worry about it. No need. If you're singing stuff that goes over the secondo passaggio, yes, warm up to generally a minor third, major second, minor third above the highest note that is in the piece that you are singing. Hello, Mrs. Webster. Hi, at Adam, vowel alignment. Yes. Mrs. Webster, at Shadrach. Korean Shen, vowel placement video. Cool, you're very welcome. Mrs. Webster, elevator minute. Yes, exactly. Thank you for holding. Great voices get away, Dave Walsh. Great voices get away with things in singing. As a teacher, do you feel you can hear poor vocal habits, which will cause problems later, even if current vocal sound is okay or even thrilling? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one of the most difficult things about when Adele became huge, and I, started to get clients that wanted to sing those songs, which is totally cool. But, as played out on quite a bit on the world stage, Adele had some phonation problems that caused some very severe problems. And, or vocal habits that caused some severe problems. And it just, the moment I heard her singing, I found it exciting and thrilling, but it just made me cringe, because it was just a kind of ticking time bomb. Conversely, I was really surprised when Sam Smith had problems. His technique, particularly over the secondo passaggio, was quite good. I was really surprised when he needed to have some surgery done. But yeah, poor Adele, you know, those glottal attacks right there, probably at or above her secondo passaggio, and again and again and again in one song, and then spread out over, you know, the variety of the repertoire that she was singing was tough. So yeah, I do feel like I can hear those things. At Mrs. Webster, sequencer, yes, sequencer, a global voice. Keep the conversation going. It's on Facebook. It's a closed group. Just, you know, ask to get in, and I'll okay you. It's all good. Everyone is welcome, but we keep it, you know, I guess so that we don't have the troll problem that we sometimes have here. Mrs. Webster at Janet 2A. Farid, hello. Excellent. Thank you, JC's rating of rain. At Jeff Rolka, are you able to tell us what project you were working on for such a long vocal days, a recording? Oh, goodness. Those are just my teaching days. That's just me teaching lessons and then working into my day when I can work on my songs. So I finally decided to not decide. There's a song I wrote some time ago called If You Want Me To, and I did some demo recordings of it a while back and did not entirely like them. So kind of went back to the drawing board on the recordings of them and couldn't decide if I would start off with an acoustic guitar basis for it or a piano basis for it. But since I do my own recordings, I have my own recording equipment and studio room. The room that I'm in is only used for music stuff. I'm just going to do one of each, and then, you know, once I'm done recording it and it's all released, then you know, whoever wants to listen to or download them can decide for themselves if they want the piano version or the guitar version. But even just getting started, I'm starting to see sort of like divergencies in the way that I'm approaching them, which is really fun. So yeah, mostly Mrs. Webster teaching. Some vocalizing in there and some work on the song If You Want Me To. Thank you, Mrs. Webster. Mrs. Webster, laughing all I learned singing with my family around a campfire. That sounds awesome. We should all be so lucky. At Mrs. Webster and lovely. Agreed. JC's Ray. Jake Merrill, what tricks do you have to get your ear to find harmony thirds? I sometimes struggle with this. I usually, for a major third, I usually look for a major third to sing So Long Farewell in my head. See, now the problem with that is that that's the third, if you're talking about that one, right, from Sound, I think that's the Sound of Music, right? So long, farewell, off we just say goodbye. The problem with that is that that starts on the third of the chord, right? So I'm playing an E-flat major triad there. So long, farewell, and that's a minor third. That's not a major third. Because the distance between the third of a triad and the fifth of a triad, so you have 1, 3, 5, 3, 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or if you prefer, mi, so, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Then you're not really singing a major third, which would be rather confusing if the melody of the song that you're trying to harmonize with starts on the tonic. That won't work. So that might be part of the problem. So for me to find harmony parts, I rely very heavily on knowing the melody of the song and understanding where it is in the music. Well, like I just said, if the melody of the song that you're meant to harmonize with starts on the tonic, then I know that I can go and try to find the third of the chord, and things will kind of proceed from there. If the melody starts on anything other than the tonic, then I have to think really carefully about how I'm going to harmonize with the piece, because I don't, and it depends on the piece too. You know, do I need to have a closed position harmony? In other words, do I really truly need to have the next available chord tone in order to start my harmony part? Is it possible to use a non-chord tone? Will it work? Sometimes adding a sixth is okay. Sometimes it's not. That's a really rare thing to have happen. I can't even think of an example where I've done that off the top of my head. I assume that it's possible. Theoretically, it's possible. But you can't go around adding sixths to chords all willy-nilly, because it'll really change the way things sound. Without, with. It's not so simple as that. So basically, know the melody really, really well. Know where it begins. Know where you're starting from, or know where it's starting from, and that will help you find where you're going to start from. If you play piano, it's just then a simple matter of getting a third off the piano. You can also practice solfege, as I demonstrated that melody. Do, mi, and then change keys, practicing that interval. Do, mi. You know, you eventually learn how to hear where mi is going to be. I started off by having to go do, re, mi, do, re, mi, and eventually you skip re, and now you're going straight to mi. You found your third. Agreed. Welcome, Benny the Bear. Thank you, Janine. Welcome. Karina, Jeff, do you place your voice forward more than backward then? I understand that you sing classical singing, you sing contemporary songs. That's true. I honestly just work towards balanced singing. I don't really think about it being forward. I think about it being balanced, and I think about maintaining alignment of the vowels. I have at times been accused of being a little bit farther forward, perhaps, but I would suggest to you that that is the result of additional rasp resonance, which I have found to be advantageous in the popular genres. So when you're using a microphone or you're singing in a cafe, having a little bit more of that brilliance is good. At me, singing even just a little bit every day is like a good habit. We know we're supposed to floss daily, but if you miss one day, it's easier to keep missing. You know, honestly, it's funny you should say that. I absolutely floss every single day. Like, I really do. I really, really make a point of flossing. It's so good for your teeth. I think it is anyways. I'm told it is. Karina Chen, do I use pure vowels? No, I don't do both. Vowel modification is a... Again, there's different schools of thought on this, but I think that there's some... I don't know. I'd have to look into the other schools of thought. Vowel modification is something that will occur naturally if you have alignment of your vowels as you get to the zona de passaggio and above the secondo passaggio. Oftentimes, we're taught to do the vowel modifications, and I think that it is often taught in order to get people to open a little bit more and to keep air moving over the vocal folds so that they can start to get into the zona de passaggio. But the thing is that if you do them correctly, when you have things in alignment, you don't really hear the modification that much. So if I'm here, to an untrained ear, that would sound like I'm just singing A and Ah. But if I exaggerate the change a little bit more, I'm really modifying both of those vowels very gradually as I ascend. With practice, I only use as much as is necessary to maintain proper adduction and only use as much engagement as is entirely necessary. At Mrs. Webster. Jeff, yes, Janet 2A, I thought that might be you. We nearly met. I just found you in one of these live videos when you were in the UK at Christmas. I thought that this was you. Yeah, thank you for joining us. You've joined us a couple times now. At David Walsh. Before what, Karina Chen? I don't recall her having surgery. Like, what's the timeline here? Because when I was teaching these songs, it was back like in 2011 or 2012. I don't know when her first surgery was. Benny the Bear, thanks, Jeff. I've never had formal training, but I've improved a lot over the 3-4 years I've been singing. Usually do 20-minute warm-up, easy songs, 30-minute medium songs, like 15-minute songs. Brilliant. Sounds awesome. Sounds like a lovely day. No, that sounds really good. It sounds really, really great. I mean, if I listened to you, I could, be more specific. But just going by what you've mentioned here, and if you're steadily working, the only thing I might add is if you're largely warming up with the videos online, just keep on rotating through the different videos, because the videos generally that I'm doing here on YouTube, in subtle ways address different skill sets, all related to proper singing technique. So just keep on working your way through them. Brilliant, Benny the Bear. Now, Karina, I didn't exactly say that she's not a good model for us. I said that she has some habits, or she had some habits, I haven't listened to her in a while, that are not particularly healthy for the voice. It's up to you to decide whether or not you want to model off of her. To copy. I wouldn't copy those glottal attacks. Face group. Newbie here, Janine Graham. What on earth is this kind of passage? It's commonly referred to as the break. Karina Chen, well, soon enough you'll be able to hear those. What do I think about Michael Bublé's vocal technique? He also had vocal surgery, but I couldn't really hear any issues in his voice. Thoughts? I think he sounds great. In general, I didn't know that he had surgery. I haven't listened to him pre and post-op. I'd have to listen to a lot more to really say, but in general, I think he sounds pretty cool. And as for technique, whenever a microphone gets involved, it becomes really sketchy. Okay, so Mrs. Webster is singing, "Oh, Canada, oh, Canada." Well, unfortunately, Mrs. Webster, that song too starts on the third. So you're learning the minor third. Oh, Canada, or mi, so, do. So that may not help you. That's not going to help you find the major third, I'm afraid. How about Celine Dion? Celine Dion is a total bad. She's bad. Bad, like in a good way. Like super bad. I saw her in concert because I had like this whole thing, like all these tickets. It was really cool. I forgot what they call that, a series or something. Astounding, astounding. Whitney Houston, astounding, very good. At Janine Graham, Daily Flock sings an excellent habit. Do not quit. Trust me on this. Thank you, David. I am going to keep on flossing. At Jeff Rogan, now I see why you didn't want to open up the Adele can of worms previously. It's quite the rabbit hole, isn't it? Yes. Yes, it is. Martin Franken, 15 people watching tonight. I always feel like this is such a cozy group, even when I'm doing completely different things. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Martin. I'm going to wrap it up. It looks like we're just about done, everybody. Thank you so much, JC's Ray. Everybody, so great as always. Really, really good time. Thank you for those new folks that dropped in. Always fun. Sorry about the whole troll thing. I know that's not, I mean, I can't really do anything about that. But thank you, JC's Rain and everybody else who helped with that. I really, truly appreciate it. Bye, everybody. Mrs. Webster, I will have to think about that because I don't think about songs, I think solfege. So I would practice my solfege, but I'll find a song for you, something really familiar. Okay? Bye, everybody. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. See you. Okay? Bye, everybody. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. See you.